Hello everyone, welcome to my kitchen. My name is Michael and today I thought I would show you how to make tomato powder. If you've always bought it in the store in those little packages, this is going to change how you buy that forever. So what you do is, if you've not seen my video on how I was canning my tomatoes, I saved the tomato skins that I used on those. But if you're not going to can, you can definitely, when you peel your tomatoes, if you do peel them, just put them in a Ziploc baggie and put them in the freezer until you get enough of them to make a batch, and then you can take them out and then get your dehydrator out, and we're going to dehydrate these today. So I've got my dehydrator here. I've got my tomato skins here, and I'm just going to lay these flat on this tray that I've got here. And I've got a little one of these liners on mine. That way they don't stick to the actual frame itself. So these little silicone ones are really nice. So we want to lay these out flat, and that way they get all the surfaces on it so they can dry easily. If you don't have the tomato skins, you can definitely use tomatoes to do that as well. I've got one here that I've taken the pit out of it, the actual stem out of it, and you cut these. You want to cut them fairly thick, about 1/4 of an inch, because what's going to happen when they dehydrate is they are really going to shrink down to almost nothing when you get ready to do that. So you can definitely, if you don't want to use the tomato skins, you can cut the tomatoes up into about 1/4 size pieces, and then you can put them in your tray as well. I'm going to go ahead and get my trays loaded up here and get that ready to go. All right, I've got all of my trays loaded down. I got about 4 trays. I wanted to show you what that looked like. You want to make sure when you're loading your tomato skins or your tomatoes in that they're not touching each other, so that they can get the air distributed around them so they can get dry fairly quickly. So we'll check on these in about 4 hours. I'll be dehydrating these at about 125 to 135, and we'll check on them then to see what they look like. And we'll get back to you, and I'll show you what these look like when they are dried. Stay with me. All right, I am back, and I wanted to show you what my tomato skins and my tomatoes look like. It's been about 24 hours now since I first put these in. The tomato skins took about 4 hours to dehydrate, and the actual tomatoes themselves took about 10 to 11 hours to do those. So you definitely want to make sure, if you can remember, when I cut these into 1/4 inch, how small these are now compared to what they were when they started. So you definitely want to make sure they get dried out. And so one way we're going to be able to test that is we're going to be able to put these in a jar. And so what you want to do is you want to take all of your tomatoes and your skins, and I'm going to load them into a jar. I'm just going to put the tomatoes in there. I'll continue to do these off camera. And then we're going to close them up. Now, if you can look at these skins, you can see that they are really brittle. They're more than likely not going to be a problem. What you might run into if you just do the tomatoes, because they are thicker, you want to make sure that they're completely dry. So what we want to do is we will put everything in the jar. We want to close the jar up, and we want to wait at least 12 to 24 hours, and we want to see if there's any moisture, that we see any kind of condensation that's inside of the jar from where maybe the tomatoes have not dried out yet. And if you see that, you definitely want to put them back in your dehydrator so that you can get those completely dry. That way they won't mold on you and they won't go bad if there's any moisture in them. So I'm going to go ahead and load this up. I'm going to let this sit here and make sure these are completely dry, and then we will move on to the next step. Stay with me. All right, I am back, and I did check my tomatoes and everything looks good on these. So definitely you want to make sure, like you say, if you're just doing the skins and they're really brittle, more than likely they're going to be okay. But if you get the bigger pieces, you might want to check those and just leave them in a jar for 12 to 24 hours, just to make sure there's not going to be any moisture come up on them, because you definitely don't want that once we get ready to grind these up. So you can do this different ways. I've got one of these little Ninja smoothie blenders here that I'm going to put mine in. It's got a little blade in the bottom of it. You can use a blender, you can use a food processor if you've got one. If you've got a mortar or pestle, you could do that also. I'm just going to put some in here, and we're going to grind this up, and that way we'll have it ready to go. All right, I've got that filled up pretty good there. I'm not going to smash it down. I can. We're just going to put this back on the bottom of this, and I'm going to put this in here, and I'm going to give this a little bit of a blast. We're going to grind all this up and turn this into a nice fine powder. All right, that did not take much at all to do that. So I'm going to continue to work on these, and I will show you what that looks like now. I didn't get it quietly down where I wanted it, so I'm going to continue to work on these. I'm going to put some more in it, and we'll grind all this up. All right, I've got all of my tomatoes now, the skins and the tomatoes that I did. I've got all of that pulverized now, and I'm going to show you what that looks like. So You can see that it's in a nice fine powder, about the same consistency that you would get in those little packages in the store. And we all know that we don't know what's in a lot of that stuff other than what we read on the ingredients, but you know what's in this because you made it yourself. So this is a nice tomato powder. If you need that for any of your recipes, you can add a little bit of salt to it, a little bit of pepper, put it in any kind of thing that you might need, anything to liven up something with just a little bit of the tomato flavoring on that. So I've got these little jars and I'll put that in, and you can use this however or wherever you'd like to. I hope this has inspired you to try to make your own tomato powder. You've got those skins on those tomatoes, why not use them for something that you can cook with? So you might not have a food dehydrator, and it's really kind of hard to do that in the oven because unless your oven can get down to that level, and a lot of them might be able to. Mine only goes down to 200. I can't get it any lower than that. And then I have seen, heard people talk about that they have to prop the door open, and that kind of lowers the internal temperature in the oven. But then you've got that heat coming into your house. So this is definitely something, if you've got a food dehydrator and you've never tried this before, then give this a try. I know you're going to love this. This is a great seasoning that you don't have to buy, that you've already bought. All right, if you like this content, maybe you might consider giving me a thumbs up. I would really appreciate it. And maybe you might want to check out one of these other two videos over here. You might find something else you like. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you in my next video. Give this a try. Let me know in the comment section what you think. Bye-bye now.